Let's start with the Panthers. A second week in a row, Bryce Young looks like, look, an NFL quarterback showed up. Now, Dave Canales won't commit to him, but whatever. He's going to start him. We're not idiots. What'd you like about what you saw in Germany, in Munich?
I love those first two drives. I think that he was very much somebody who you looked for to try and get some progress. I know that, when it comes down to it, you obviously have to take that progress with a little bit of a bit of a bell curve, just because of the fact that, the yardage numbers aren't what a lot of people would expect. But you have to think about the context of this. He's really got nobody who you would consider to be a veteran presence as a pass catcher outside of the guys coming out of the backfield. And I think Canales finally committed to the run game, fully, not just, we're going to run it every so often. He actually ran it with Chuba Hubbard.
28 carries.
That I think is the most encouraging thing about it. And the fact that you got the complimentary football out of the defense to also help them out, forcing 3 turnovers, the big turnover in overtime to get them the victory. Again, 2 wins that you would probably consider ugly wins, but they are still wins. They count. It's not like – I feel like sometimes we have a lot of college football fans in this area, and I think too often they become consumed about – how it looks and how they win. There's no college football playoff committee for the Carolina Panthers. There's no BCS. Margin of victory does not matter here. The win counts just the same. So as far as I'm concerned, the last 2 weeks have honestly been a joy to watch and very much an overjoy compared to what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, first time since 22 that they've won two consecutive games. That is hard to believe. Here's the thing. If people don't like... We'll just call them, an ugly win. Has anybody watched the Kansas City Chiefs lately? I mean, they're 8-0, and their margin of victory without ever losing a game is 6. And they are just squeaking by. They should have lost yesterday to the Denver Broncos at home.
Blocked kicks. That's what they're living on.
But there's a reason they're 8-0. I mean, did they get the benefit? Sure, I'm sure they did. But they still blocked the kick. They still figured out a way to win, and they have Patrick Mahomes. I do wish that we would see a few more downfield. I'm not talking about deep shots. I wish we would see more from Bryce Young throwing the ball 10 yards down the field, 15 yards down the field. I think he's good. I think he's good at that. Some of the passes, one crossing route to Jalen Coker. Where it looked like it might have been a little high, but it was perfectly thrown ball. It had to be thrown a little bit taller. Perfectly thrown ball. I just thought that we saw a lot of good from Bryce. He wasn't great, but he showed that he looks like he belongs. And that, to me, is what we should see.
Well, I think one of the things he's also taken is he's taken a lot of what he learned, whether it was on the bench, whether it was, in practice. He took a lot of the stuff that, came from the benching and learned from it. He understood that he's got to be more decisive. He understood that, the internal clock in the National Football League is not what it is in college. He also knows now that the difference between being open in college versus what open looks like in the NFL are two completely different things. He's not scared to throw the football anymore. He's not scared to make mistakes anymore. And mistakes will come. Overthrows will come and things will happen. And I'm curious to see how he bounces back from that adversity. But when you think about the last 2 weeks, he's somebody who has kept you in games. He has very much given the offense chance to hope. I think the one thing, too, that you look at is you got a young core of playmakers in Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and Jatavion Sanders, who represent the closest thing that they've had to building blocks from a skill position aspect that we've had in this first time in a long time. So from that perspective, I feel like you're very, very much comforted by that fact. Adam Thielen coming back will definitely help things as well, and as will Jonathan Brooks potentially after the bye as well, because you'll definitely need him after the injury to Miles Sanders. So I think from that perspective, things are looking up, and it all comes back to this, Adam. The easiest way that this all gets better is no additional resources for the quarterback position, so Dan Morgan can build the rest of the roster. And if Bryce Young proves by the end of the year that he's progressed enough to where you can trust him for at least one more year, I think you stick with him, and maybe, just maybe, he turns something closer into, after another offseason and a full offseason of work under Dave Canales, he becomes closer to the kind of guy that you drafted number 1 overall and the guy you traded up all those assets to go get.
Will Palaszczuk at Willie P. Style on Twitter is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. See, I think they're still going to trade him in the offseason, but I also think that this is good for his value, because if he demonstrates that he can be an NFL quarterback, like, it's not like what the Jets did with Zach Wilson, who, I mean, that guy can't play in the league. He's just a great athlete. I don't think Justin Fields is ever going to be a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL, but he's a great athlete. Like, I think Daniel Jones, to me, is a career backup. Heck, Daniel Jones could back up, I'll just throw it out there, Andy Dalton next year here in Charlotte. But I think they're going to trade Bryce Young. Let me get to the other. By the way, DJ Wanham on the field.
Yes.
How about that?
Yes. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, Josie Jewell has made plays. Now, is it back-to-back weeks where Josie Jewell has made big plays? That was a great interception down in the red zone.
After he missed one on the previous portion of the drive, which was redemption for him. Yeah,
so they're starting to make some plays. It's nice. They can still get run through. I mean, that kid Tracy was really good for the Giants, but I think this defense, I think the cake is baked with this defense, but as they get some players back, you're seeing maybe a little bit more of a pass rush. Now with Jadeveon Clowney healthy, it was good to see that. So some positive signs. Now, do I think they're going to beat the Chiefs after the bye? I mean, why not? Dumber things have happened, right?
Dumber things have happened, number one. And number two, there are other games on this schedule that don't look nearly as daunting. I mean, I think we all kind of chalked up the Cowboy game potentially as a loss, but you see the way they looked without Dak Prescott.
They're terrible.
Anemic. They were anemic.
They are.
So
is the game in Dallas? Because if the game is Dallas, it's a guaranteed Panthers win.
It's here.
I wish it was in Dallas. They definitely win that in Dallas. All right, so the Hornets have won 2 in a row, speaking of winning 2 in a row. So LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller are good.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you like?
I like the fact that it's a deeper team than they've seen in recent years. Look, I mean, when you think about the 2 wins last week, I know that they took the unfortunate setback against the Sixers last night, but it almost felt like a win last night after they came back from 16 down to force overtime against an undermanned Philadelphia team, to be fair. But I think the one thing you like is that they do have now what I would call workable depth. They've got Grant Williams, who they come off the bench with. I know that from the center standpoint, they are very much depleted, and you're having to deal with the old man, Taj Gibson, starting. But you've got a guy in Moussa Diabate who's giving you great minutes. He had 15 rebounds the other night against the Pacers, 11 rebounds last night against the Philadelphia 76ers, 5 of them on the offensive end. I think Trey Mann is somebody who is becoming a 6th Man of the Year candidate. Yeah. I think that Seth Curry provides a lot of leadership, veteran leadership off the bench as well. And look, there was a time where Charles Lee was going 10, 11, 12 deep with his rotations the way that he started this season. Obviously, with the injuries to Miles Bridges and Nick Richards and Mark Williams, he's probably had to shorten that a little bit. But I think the one thing you've looked at and liked is that LaMelo and Brandon are carrying this team, and they've got guys around them to be able to be supportive. And that's something you very much like from a Hornets perspective as they go through a part of this schedule that's going to include the NBA Cup. We'll see if they can get themselves into the knockout round and get some important and meaningful games to try and add to the schedule. But I think they're just hoping right now to kind of tread water as they get Bridges, Richards, and Williams back. And obviously those things are still yet to be determined on the length of those guys' injuries. But I think that once those guys get back, then they really can kind of unleash what I think people had from a hope standpoint for them this season.
I just think it's encouraging that when healthy, LaMelo Ball is an absolute difference maker. And I think he's better than, like, to me, when I first saw him, I thought he was more flash, more style than substance. I think there's substance there, and I love Miller. So, it's nice to have those.
LaMelo has made some Melo's made some big adjustments to his game. Like, he no longer shies away from contact. I found it interesting during one of his pregame interviews with our radio team. Sam Farmer asked him, about one of the things that he likes about Charles Lee, and Charles Lee actually has implored him to play a little bit more defense. And you've seen that over the first couple of contests. Like, LaMelo is actually giving an effort on defense, swiping away the ball, getting steals, active hands.
Look at that.
I know that sometimes people are criticizing him fouling too much. I think that's always going to be a part of your game when you play the position that he is, but I think he's somebody who is developing an all-around game now.
All right, now to the bad. I couldn't get to. I know you sent me the official hangout because the game was in Orlando.
Sure.
But Charlotte FC with a 1-0 lead until the last minute of added time, and then the referee put Orlando City on the penalty spot. First, did you think it was a penalty? And then we'll go from there.
So there was contact.
Right.
But I thought it was very soft, and I thought that the player, Maguire, made a meal of it, definitely tried to sell it. I'm not one of these people who thinks that a call in the first minute is the same as the 97th minute. I think the bar gets raised as you get later in the game. I think the fact that you decide a series on a call of that nature, I think is criminal, personally. I don't think that really reflects what we want to see happen. We don't want to see the game, the jurisprudence of the game, come down to a shirt tug. Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I also didn't like the offside call that was on Patrick Ajiman's goal that was disallowed.
Right.
But the other part of that too is this is what happens when you live on thin margins. And unfortunately, Charlotte FC, kind of lived on thin margins the entire year. Sometimes it works out for you, sometimes it doesn't.
1-0 lead, and to me, it's not a penalty. I am somebody who believes that the call in the first minute is the same as the call in the last minute, but I wouldn't have made that call in the first minute either. I just don't think.
I don't disagree with you. I've heard some people try to justify it. My partner Jessica Trauman thought it was a penalty.
Oh, okay.
And I'm
Gosh,
not,
she's never wrong. How do you get away with that?
I just think it's just soft. I just think it's so soft.
I thought it was soft too. Anyway, it was a great year, and it was good to be back in the playoffs and in with a shout against a team like Orlando City with Facundo Torres. They never lose, but unfortunately, with best goalkeeper in the league, right?
And would have had a home game too if they had won too.
Right.
That's the part. That's the part that really hurts.
All right, real quick on the penalty. It's a good save. Wasn't a great penalty because it was like it was hard, but it was sort of central. Like it didn't go for. If it's a better penalty, I think that ball is parried away from the goal. But because it was into his body, and I think everybody was kind of asleep there because Torres was the only person who moved.
Yeah, that's the only part of it that I feel like from Charlotte's perspective, you would have liked to see somebody get there a little quicker. I think, again, the shock of the moment, I think the other thing, too, that bothers me about the penalty is how long it took to put him on the line, because I think that took a lot of the oxygen out of the game. The fact that the dude goes to the monitor, I mean, how many times have we seen, I mean, you watch enough soccer, how many times have we seen them go to a monitor and keep the freaking call the same on the field as it was after they go to the monitor? Like, you never see that happen. Maybe I've seen that happen. I could count on one hand the amount of times I've seen that happen.
If they send you to the monitor, it's usually to change the call.
If the dude in Arlington can see it, what did you not see, Izmir Pekmich?
Did you just curse at me in German? Are we still talking about that?
No, that's the name of the referee, but it's okay.
Will Palaszczuk at Willie P Style. Thank you, man. We will talk again very soon. I appreciate your time.
Always appreciate it, Adam. Thank you.
You got it.